witness the most fascinating and untold story of Sindhu, the river Indus. Come join us on an epic journey through 11,000 years of history, geography, and culture. Come travel with us. 2,000 miles with mighty Indus.
Hello everyone, welcome to Drop. I'm Asad.
I'm Usman.
I'm Safi.
Today on the show we have two very interesting guests with us. Usman, who's a practicing lawyer, and Safi, who's working with the government. As we review Indian elections, the first and foremost question, what went wrong with Congress?
I think the right question to ask would be what didn't go wrong with Congress. So as far as the Indian elections are concerned, I believe that the Indian voter generally is moving towards the right. And the problem with the Congress in this election was a complete lack of political orientation. Vis-a-vis, say, the Conservatives right now in the United Kingdom. You don't exactly know where they stand on a lot of issues. On the other hand, the BJP promises stern, strong, powerful government, which I think the people of India think is the future. Rahul Gandhi is an inexperienced politician. He didn't make the requisite seat adjustments necessary with, say, the Aam Aadmi Party or the other opposition parties. And in a first-past-the-post system of representative democracy, without making those necessary seat adjustments, against a strong party like the BJP, it's easy to believe that you would end up losing a lot of seats, which is essentially what ended up happening. Beyond that, Congress from the last tenure has a horrible history of corruption attached to it. The dynastic politics of the party has been rejected by the people of India. They want to move towards a development-oriented sense of politics, and I think Modi offers them that. So I think with regards to Congress, it's a structural failure of not only their history and memory, but also where they place themselves exactly in this election.
But with regards to Modi offering them development, future, would you agree that Modi has failed on many fronts? On a lot of economic indicators showed that Modi hasn't performed that well, but he still came back into power. Safi?
I completely agree with that. I feel that this is one reason why he has barked so much on the idea of everyone hashtag Chowkidar, right? Because the idea is that they did not perform that well economically. You could see this in the fact that when they're talking about Achhe Din, this is something they promised, they could not perform well in the sense that they had 6.1% unemployment rate, which is the highest in the last 45 years of India. At the same time, in 2016, you notice 86% of the currency notes go out of the market. That destroys the informal sector. They claim to have around 8 to 8.2% of GDP growth. But that again is contested by very senior economists like Sen, who point out this could be lower at least 2%. What we're trying to suggest here is that they were obviously not performing well in terms of economics. So they
Is
had
this
to,
where the hatred and hyper-nationalism comes into play as well?
I slightly disagree with the word hated because I think it's a very strong word to suggest. I feel the right word is paranoia. And I think this is a classic case of Charles Tilly, a very basic thing that we study in political science of how the state tends to act as a racketeer, create paranoia, and then he asks the people to feed on it. Right? And this is how they ask people to vote for you. And then eventually that's how they ask people to give taxes, right? So what I'm trying to suggest here is that this paranoia was created, and that's what he's fed off to somehow say that he's instilled genuine hatred for Pakistanis. I don't agree with that still.
Any comments on that?
Yeah, as far as I don't think hyper-nationalism was perhaps as important a factor in explaining these elections as it is painted out to be. So statistics are hard to come by, especially verifiable ones, given Modi's track record on statistics generally, and the elections have just concluded. But preliminary reports suggest, and it's very surprising, that Modi has increased his vote share amongst the Muslims, Dalits, and Adivasis. And you don't really get that by peddling hate, do you? So you have to find an explanation for why these marginalized communities who are on the wrong end of the narrative and who are getting the wrong end of the stick as well happen to support Modi. And as far as that is concerned, I think Partha Chatterjee, the famous political thinker, offers a very good explanation in terms of what she calls providing access points to the poorest of the poor in India. So be it through Swachh Bharat or through massive public spending schemes in the Hindu heartland of 2018 and beyond. Not just the fact that he said that there was a threat from Pakistan, but also the entire year before, the BJP, Amit Shah and party have worked really, really hard on establishing a strong base through which they can operate. And this public spending scheme helps them with
So
that.
drawing on what Hafiz has been saying, so can we conclude that populist politics is here to stay? And if that is the case, then how should the moderate and centrist parties readjust to this
Let's
change?
start with one thing. I think let's clear it out first of all. Social sciences does not have the predictive power, and let's stop trying to be hard sciences. We're not hard sciences. What we see right now, nevertheless, is that there is a trend of populism we see in the world. In the societies increasing where we see this trend, we see there is a pure people, there is a corrupt elite, there is a longing for the good times that there used to be, right? And there is someone they need to blame for it. And this trend is increasing around the world, and we could see it in the elections that happened just in the European Union very recently, and not just in India. That goes to show that at least this thing is here and is rapidly going around the world. We see it emerging in almost, so for example, in the case of India, you could talk about how the illiteracy has a lot to do with how you can sway the masses. Could you make the same comment about EU? No. So it is here to stay.
So any concluding thoughts on that?
Populism is here to stay insofar as governments can no longer afford to overlook and alienate large swaths of their population. And that's what the Indian voter and electorate has said. If Indian people are turning to hyper-nationalism, and if they want to blame Muslims or the minorities within India for their plight, it is because the state has failed them. In order to provide them the kind of narratives that could protect them, could give them a sense of living, meaning, and existence, the state has actively given them enemies to go after by failing them. And that is why people like Modi, when they use the dual tactic of Vikas and at the same time an anti-Muslim narrative or an anti-minority narrative, manage to succeed electorally. So populism is here to stay.
So the last thing, how do you guys see Modi getting along with Pakistan in his second term?
Well, in the absence of any provocation from our side, which shouldn't be an issue, and if he were to not lose more state elections, and if nothing were to be needed to win another election, I personally believe Modi will get along well with us. Because big business likes peace, and Modi and big business are best friends.
I respectfully disagree on the part that he would get along well with us. I think there would be a bit of indifference towards Pakistan, in the sense that they do not feel that there is any offensive coming from Pakistan's end at any time soon, right? But at the same time, they would still need to keep the arsenal of using the Pakistan card if they ever need it again, in case they don't perform well enough again in India. So in that case, I feel they'll keep Pakistan at bay, but at the same time, they won't antagonize Pakistan.
So guys, that's all for today. Stay tuned for our next episode of Drop.
It has been worshipped as a god for thousands of years.